The hum of the office filled my ears as I stepped into the building I had built from the ground up. The employees greeted me with respect, a recognition of the years of work I had poured into making this business what it was today. I could still remember the early days, long hours, sleepless nights, and countless sacrifices. I hadn't been handed success. I had earned every bit of it. When I first approached my father about expanding the business, he was hesitant. He had always believed that leadership should remain with the men of the family. My younger sister, Lisa, had never shown any interest in business. She was the spoiled one, the favorite, the child who had always been shielded from responsibility. But I fought for my place. I took over a struggling branch and turned it into the most profitable sector of the company. I made the calls, negotiated deals, and built connections that took our business to heights my father had never imagined. Lisa never cared. She lived comfortably, married a wealthy man, and had 2 children. Whenever she needed money, she got it. Whenever she made a mistake, she was excused. It had always been that way, but I never resented her for it, until the day she walked into my office with a smirk on her face. I was reviewing financial reports when the door swung open without a knock. Lisa strolled in, dressed in designer clothes, her nails freshly manicured as if she had no worries in the world. "Good morning to you too," I said dryly, setting my pen down. She didn't bother with pleasantries. Instead, she walked around the room like she was inspecting it, then sat in the chair across from me with an infuriating smile. "Dad's giving it all to me," she said casually. I blinked. "What?" She crossed her legs and sighed as if she pitied me. "The business, the shares, everything. He says I need it more than you do. I have kids to feed after all." For a moment, I couldn't speak. My mind struggled to process the absurdity of what she was saying. She continued, tilting her head. "I mean, you'll be fine. You're always so independent. But I have a family to take care of. Dad says it's only fair." "Fair." I clenched my jaw, my fingers digging into the armrest of my chair. Years of work, years of sacrifice. And it was being handed over like a charity prize because my sister had children? She smiled again, as if expecting me to accept it without question. I forced my voice to remain steady. "Lisa, you don't know the first thing about running this business." She shrugged. "That's what managers are for." Rage boiled inside me, but I refused to let her see it. This wasn't just an insult. This was war. And I wasn't about to lose everything I built without a fight. I sat there, frozen, staring at Lisa as her words echoed in my mind. "Dad's giving it all to me." The weight of her statement pressed down on me, making it hard to breathe. Years of struggle, of sacrifice, of turning a failing branch into a thriving empire, gone just like that? I forced myself to speak, my voice dangerously low. "Lisa, this business is mine. I built it. You can't just waltz in here and—" She let out a fake laugh. "Relax, sis. It's not like I came up with this idea. Dad decided it was best for the family. He says you don't need it like I do. Because you have kids." I scoffed. "That's your excuse." She flipped her hair, unfazed. "It's not an excuse. It's reality. You're single, no dependents, no responsibilities outside of work. Meanwhile, I have 2 little mouths to feed. Do you really expect Dad to ignore that?" I gritted my teeth, my nails digging into my palms. "So that's how he sees me? Just some disposable worker with no real family?" Before I could respond, my office door opened again. This time, it was my father. He walked in, his face unreadable, but there was a finality in his eyes that made my stomach sink. "Lisa, give us a moment," he said. Lisa stood, stretching like she had all the time in the world. "Sure, Dad, but don't take too long. I have plans to go over." She winked at me before walking out. I turned to my father, my heart pounding. "Tell me this isn't real." He exhaled and took the seat Lisa had just vacated. "It's true. I've decided to transfer ownership to Lisa." My body went cold. "You what?" "You'll still have a position here," he said, as if that made it better. "You'll keep your salary, your benefits. But Lisa will have control of the business." I felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath me. "Why?" "Because she has kids." "It's not just that," he said, rubbing his temple. "Lisa needs stability. She hasn't had the easiest life. You've always been strong, independent. You'll land on your feet. But she She needs this more than you do. I stared at him, disbelief flooding through me. She hasn't had the easiest life. Are you serious? She's been spoiled her entire existence. She never worked for anything. I built this company, I did. And you're just giving it away. He sighed. It's not about fairness, it's about family. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Family? Since when did I stop being family? He didn't answer. And that silence told me everything. I swallowed the lump in my throat, my chest burning with rage and betrayal. You know what? Fine. I stood up, gripping the edge of my desk. If you think I'm just going to roll over and let this happen, you don't know me at all. My father frowned. What are you saying? I met his gaze, my voice steady. I'm saying Lisa just inherited more than she bargained for. Because if she thought running a business was easy, if he thought I'd just sit back and accept this, then they were about to learn a very painful lesson. This wasn't over. Not even close. The air in my father's study was thick with tension. The mahogany desk, once a symbol of wisdom and authority, now felt like a barrier between us. My father sat behind it, his expression stern, while Lisa lounged on the couch, scrolling through her phone like this was just another casual evening. I stood near the doorway, my arms crossed, my blood still boiling from our earlier conversation. You called for a family meeting, I said flatly, breaking the silence. So let's hear it. My father leaned forward, folding his hands. I wanted us to have a civil discussion about the transition. Lisa smirked. We could have just done this over dinner, but someone is being dramatic. I shot her a glare. You think this is funny? She shrugged. I think you're overreacting. It's just business. Just business. I repeated, my voice laced with disbelief. Lisa, this is my life's work. Do you even know what running a company means? Of course, she said, rolling her eyes. That's what managers and assistants are for. I don't need to know every little detail. I clenched my fists, barely restraining myself. You're unbelievable. My father sighed, rubbing his temple. That's enough. I didn't call you here to argue. I called you here to ensure a smooth transition. Your role, as I said before, will remain secure. You'll still be part of the company. As what? Her assistant. I spat. Lisa gasped mockingly. Oh, now that's an idea. I slammed my hand on the desk. I'm not working under her. You won't be, my father said, trying to maintain control. You'll still be in an executive role, just without final authority. I scoffed. So basically, I'll do all the work while she gets all the credit? Lisa yawned. It's not my fault Dad trusts me more with the future of the company. That was it. I straightened, my voice cold. Trust? He's not trusting you with anything. He's gifting you my success because you refuse to stand on your own 2 feet. That's not trust. That's pity. Lisa's face darkened, but before she could respond, I turned back to my father. I won't accept this. His jaw tightened. You don't have a choice. A slow, bitter smile crept onto my lips. Oh, but I do. I reached into my bag, pulling out a folder. I tossed it onto his desk, watching as confusion flickered across his face. What's this? He asked. I crossed my arms. My backup plan. Lisa grabbed the folder and flipped it open. Her eyes widened as she scanned the documents. What the hell is this? Contracts, I said. With clients, suppliers, and key executives. You see, Dad, while you were busy planning this betrayal, I was securing my own future. Nearly every major account in this company is tied to me, not the company name, not the family me. My father paled. What are you saying? I leaned in. I'm saying that if you go through with this, I walk. And when I do, I'll take half this business with me. Lisa's mouth opened and closed like a fish. You wouldn't dare. I met her gaze. Try me. For the first time, fear flickered in her eyes. I turned to my father. You thought I'd just accept this? That I'd let you take everything from me without consequences? Silence. I smiled. Then you never really knew me at all. And with that, I walked out, leaving them to choke on their own shock. This fight was just beginning. The morning after the family meeting, the office felt different. Whispers followed me as I walked through the halls, employees exchanging nervous glances. They had heard the rumors. Word traveled fast. Lisa hadn't even taken over yet, and the shift in power was already causing unease. I entered my office and shut the door, taking a deep breath. My hands trembled, not with fear, but with adrenaline. I had fired my first shot last night, and now it was time to follow through. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. First, to the company's top suppliers. Then, to the biggest clients. One by one, I reminded them of our agreements tied directly to me, not the company. My name was the one they trusted, the one they worked with. And I made it clear that if I walked, I would take them with me. Most of them didn't even hesitate. "Where you go, we go," one supplier told me. "You built this, not them." By noon, the damage was already visible. Lisa stormed into my office, slamming the door behind her. "What the hell are you doing?" she snapped, throwing a folder onto my desk. "Dad just called me. Half our suppliers are pulling out. Clients are demanding meetings. What did you say to them?" I leaned back in my chair, unfazed. I told them the truth. Her face twisted with anger. "Which is?" I met her gaze evenly. "That the company is being handed to someone who has no idea how to run it. That their trust isn't in the family name, it's in me." Her nostrils flared. "You're sabotaging your own company." I tilted my head. "You mean your company, don't you?" She gritted her teeth. "Dad will fix this." I chuckled. "Good luck with that." She took a deep breath, trying to regain control. "Fine. If you want to fight, you'll get one. But don't forget, I'm still the one in charge now." I smirked. "Then start acting like it." She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I exhaled slowly, my heart pounding. I had made my move. Now, I just had to wait for the next 1.2 days after I made my move. Chaos erupted in the company. The cracks in Lisa's so-called leadership had begun to show, and it was happening faster than I expected. I arrived at the office early as usual, and the first thing I saw was a group of employees whispering near the break room. The tension was unmistakable. When they spotted me, they quickly dispersed, pretending to look busy. I smirked. Something's happening. It didn't take long to find out what. By noon, 3 senior executives had resigned. By 3 in the afternoon, another supplier pulled out. And by 5, the company's biggest client had sent a formal request for a meeting, specifically with me. Lisa was losing control. I expected her to come storming into my office again, but this time she didn't. Instead, my father called me. "Come to my office." Now, his voice was tight, angry. I took my time walking there, not bothering to rush. When I stepped in, Lisa was already inside, arms crossed, her face red with frustration. My father sat behind his desk, glaring at me like I was the problem. "You did this," Lisa accused the second I walked in. I raised an eyebrow. "Did what?" My father slammed his hand on the desk. "Enough. This ends now." I folded my arms. "What ends?" "This game you're playing," he snapped. "I don't know what you told the clients, but they're threatening to take their business elsewhere. Do you know what that means?" I shrugged. "That they don't trust Lisa to run things." Lisa let out an exasperated groan. "Dad, we need to do something about her. She's ruining everything." I scoffed. "No, you are." Lisa turned to my father. "Fire her." My father hesitated. Lisa's face contorted with frustration. "Dad, if you want me to run this company, I need full control. She's undermining me." I laughed. "Lisa, let me explain something to you." I leaned in. "You don't have a company to run without me." She opened her mouth, but I cut her off. "You wanted my position. You wanted my company. But what you never understood was that this business isn't just a title or a desk. It's about trust, relationships, leadership. You don't have any of that." I turned to my father. "And neither do you anymore." His face darkened. "Watch your tone." I met his glare without flinching. "Or what? You'll fire me? Go ahead. See how long your company lasts when I take everything with me." Silence. Lisa looked at my father expectantly, but his hesitation spoke volumes. "You thought I would just let you take everything from me?" I shook my head. "No, Dad. I built this. And if you want to take it away from me, you better be ready to lose it all." I straightened. "You have a choice. Keep Lisa in charge and watch everything collapse, or fix this before it's too late." The air was thick with tension. My father's jaw was tight, his hands clenched. Lisa was the first to break. "You can't let her win." I smirked. "Oh, Lisa." I turned for the door. I already have. And with that, I walked out, leaving them in the mess they created. The cracks in Lisa's leadership widened like fractures in glass. By the next morning, it was clear she was drowning. I walked into the office to find the atmosphere thick with unease. Employees whispered in hushed tones, their nervous glances darting toward Lisa's office. The receptionist barely acknowledged me, distracted by the growing chaos. I knew exactly why. I made my way to my office, but before I could sit down, my assistant, Julia, hurried in. She looked around, then shut the door behind her. "You're not going to believe this," she whispered. I leaned back, arms crossed. "Try me." Julia took a deep breath. Lisa just had a meeting with the department heads. She tried to change the company's entire structure, slashing budgets, reassigning teams, even threatening to fire people who didn't support her. I smirked. "Let me guess. It backfired." Julia nodded. "Big time. Half the managers are already looking for jobs elsewhere." One of them straight up walked out of the meeting. I wasn't surprised. Lisa thought authority meant control, but leadership wasn't about forcing people to obey. It was about earning their respect. And she had earned none. Before I could respond, the sound of Lisa's heels clicking against the floor made both of us turn. Julia quickly stepped aside as Lisa barged into my office, her face flushed with frustration. "Fix this," she snapped, slamming a folder onto my desk. I raised an eyebrow. "Fix what?" Lisa's nostrils flared. "You know what? The employees are turning against me, clients are threatening to leave, and now the board is asking questions." I opened the folder and scanned the documents. Internal complaints, client concerns, financial reports. It was worse than I expected. The company was bleeding, and Lisa was running out of bandages. I leaned back, tapping my fingers against the desk. "And why is that my problem?" Lisa's hands balled into fists. "Because if this company fails, we both lose." I chuckled. "Correction, you lose. I already have my exit plan." Her eyes widened. "You wouldn't dare." I smirked. "Try me." Lisa exhaled sharply, then softened her tone. "Please." That caught me off guard. Lisa never begged. I studied her for a moment. She was desperate, her arrogance cracking under the weight of reality. For the first time, she realized she wasn't untouchable. But I wasn't going to let her off easy. I leaned forward. "You want my help?" She swallowed. "Yes." I smiled. "Then admit it." Lisa's brow furrowed. "Admit what?" "That you were wrong. That you never should have taken what wasn't yours. That you're in over your head." Her jaw clenched. She hesitated. I tilted my head. "See? That's your problem. You can't even say it." Lisa looked down, her shoulders stiff. I stood up, walking around the desk until I was right in front of her. "I warned you," I said quietly. "This company wasn't something you could just take. And now, you're watching it slip through your fingers." Lisa's hands trembled. "So what do I do?" I studied her for a moment before giving my answer. "You step aside." Lisa's eyes shot up. "No. No way." I shrugged. "Then enjoy watching everything burn." I turned back to my desk, dismissing her. Lisa stood there for a moment, fists clenched, breathing hard. Then, without another word, she stormed out. I sighed. She wasn't ready to give up yet. But soon, she'd have no choice that Lisa's downfall wasn't slow, it was an avalanche. By the next morning, the company was in full-blown crisis mode. The board had scheduled an emergency meeting. Employees were panicked. More clients had pulled out. And Lisa, she was scrambling. I watched from my office window as she paced back and forth, snapping at her assistant, flipping through documents with shaking hands. She was trying to salvage something that was already lost. A knock at my door pulled my attention away. Julia peeked inside. "The board wants to see you." I smirked. "Of course they do." I walked into the boardroom to find a storm waiting. The members sat stiffly, their faces grim. Lisa was already there, sitting beside my father, looking exhausted and furious at the same time. One of the board members, Mr. Alden, cleared his throat. "We have a problem." Lisa scoffed. "No kidding." Mr. Alden ignored her. He turned to me. "We need to discuss your role in this." I raised an eyebrow. "My role?" "Yes," another member said. Suppliers, clients, employees, they're all showing loyalty to you, not Lisa. I leaned back in my chair. That's because they trust me. I built those relationships. Lisa didn't. Lisa glared. You sabotaged me. I chuckled. No, Lisa. You did this all by yourself. I just watched. My father finally spoke, his voice heavy. Enough. We need a solution. He turned to me. Are you willing to fix this? I tilted my head. That depends. Lisa tensed. On what? I met my father's gaze. On whether you're ready to admit you made the wrong choice. Silence. Lisa scoffed. You just want to humiliate us. I smirked. No, Lisa. I want you to understand why you failed. The board members exchanged uneasy glances. They knew I had the upper hand. Finally, my father exhaled, rubbing his temples. What do you want? I didn't hesitate. Lisa steps down immediately. Lisa's mouth fell open. Absolutely not. I ignored her. I take back full control. My way. No interference. Mr. Alden leaned forward. And what do we get? I smiled. Stability. Growth. The success that Lisa could never deliver. Lisa shot up from her chair. You can't do this. My father sighed. Lisa, sit down. Her face paled. Dad. He wouldn't even look at her. And that's when she realized she had lost. She sank back into her seat, stunned. I turned to the board. So, do we have a deal? The room was quiet for a long moment. Then, one by one, the board members nodded. Mr. Alden sighed. You're back in charge. Lisa's face twisted in rage. This isn't fair. I leaned in, lowering my voice so only she could hear. You walked in here thinking you could take everything from me. But Lisa, I was always 10 steps ahead. Her lip quivered, but she had no comeback. I straightened. Meeting adjourned. As I walked out, I felt the weight of victory settle over me. Lisa was finished. And the business was mine. Again, Lisa didn't leave quietly. The day after the board reinstated me, she stormed into my office one last time. Her face was red, her eyes burning with resentment. This isn't over, she hissed, slamming her hands on my desk. I leaned back in my chair, completely unfazed. Lisa, it's already over. You just don't want to accept it. She clenched her fists. I gave up everything for this company. I fought for it. I shook my head. No, Lisa. You stole it. And then, you ran it into the ground. Her breath hitched, but I wasn't done. You never cared about the employees. You never cared about the clients. You only cared about the power. I narrowed my eyes. And that's why you failed. She opened her mouth, then shut it again. For the first time, she had nothing to say. I stood up, walking around the desk until I was face to face with her. Do you know what the worst part is? I asked. I was willing to share success with you. If you had asked for my help instead of demanding my throne, things could have been different. Her eyes flickered with something, regret? No, it was too late for that. But she stayed silent. I sighed. Lisa, you should leave. Her jaw tightened. You're kicking me out. I nodded. Not just from the company. From my life, too. Her breath caught. What? I folded my arms. I was your sister. I loved you, even when you treated me like I was nothing. But after everything you've done, I shook my head. I'm done trying to fix this relationship. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she quickly blinked them away. She wanted to be strong, to act like this didn't affect her. But I could see the truth. She had lost everything. Her power, her reputation, and now her family. Lisa exhaled shakily. Fine, she muttered. Enjoy your little victory. Then, she turned and walked out. For good. With Lisa gone, I focused on rebuilding. The employees who had been afraid to speak up finally found their voices. The clients who had left started returning. The company, my company, was thriving again. One evening, as I sat in my office, looking over the quarterly reports, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my father. I made a mistake. I see that now. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know. I stared at the message for a long time before locking my phone. He had chosen Lisa over me, and now he was paying the price. Some wounds don't heal. But I had learned something through all of this. Success isn't just about power or proving a point. It's about knowing your worth, and I would never let anyone take that from me again.